Gear up, because this is the Fuel Your Marketing podcast, designed to accelerate sales and grow your business. Let's welcome your host, Arti Sharma.
Hey, welcome back to the Fuel Your Marketing podcast. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by a VP of Customer Success who's redefining how companies approach collaboration across different functions, different teams. Her zone of genius is customer success and building those teams to collaborate with other roles and functions. Her name is Andrea Bumstead, and she has a proven track record of scaling businesses from 10 million to 500 million. And I met her at a Pavilion event. We hit it off, and it would be a miss not to bring her on the show. Andrea, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Arti. It's a pleasure to be here.
Listen, I never do justice to my guests as I introduce them. I'd like to invite you to share a little bit more about you, your roles over the last 15 years, and tell us something that we don't know on your LinkedIn.
Oh, that's a good one. I love that. So in my past 3 roles, I've been hired to transform the customer success organization at a very pivotal moment in the company. So I won't go through my whole work history, but just in my last 3 roles at Procore, I was hired to found the customer success team in Canada. I grew that team from 5 to 35 people across 5 functions. And we tripled ARR during that time from 50 million to 500 million. Exceptional results. And the results of my team were actually influential in the company going public. We had 120% NRR, 98% GRR, and 97% CSAT, just unheard of results.
Wow, those are tremendous results, 100%.
Yes. And then after that, I wanted to wear all the hats, move into a vice president of customer success role with more responsibility, but for a smaller organization. I went to revenue.io, where I transformed the customer success organization when they were moving from a one product company to a multi-product or platform offering.
Wow.
And yeah, so they were changing their go-to-market strategy. They had very ambitious goals to move from 15 to 45 million. And it was during a very challenging time. That was during this sort of market downturn in SaaS. And then from there, I was approached by a company called Kindsight. I didn't have intentions of leaving revenue.io, but I couldn't turn down the opportunity to go to Kindsight as a vice president of customer success. The company was 50 million, looking to go to 150 million, and they had just acquired 2 companies. So they were looking for me to completely carte blanche the customer success organization and get it ready for their brand new go-to-market function with both an SMB and an enterprise offering. So those are my past 3 roles, all highly transformative at pivotal moments in these organizations. One thing you won't find on my LinkedIn is actually how far back my work history goes. So I grew up on a farm. My first job was actually feeding all of the baby calves in the barn. There was about 45 of them, and I was 9 years old. So that's something that you will not find on my LinkedIn profile. I start my work history when I started in marketing, fresh out of university, but I've been working for much longer than that.
Oh, wow. Well, that makes you tough being at the farm. I remember my husband, when I got married, they had a 200-acre farm land. And, back in India, they were growing strawberries at the time. So that was like, the new, I'm talking many decades ago. Let's not age ourselves here, and we'll get to the we'll get to the meats and potatoes of the strategies that we're going to share today with our audience. Andrea, this passion for collaboration, going into the messy middles and, being that firefighter, I resonated with you when we were first very briefly chatting at Pavilion. And I think that's how I resonated with you, because I think that, what stuck with me is that you see sales and marketing as your best friends. In crafting and executing a successful go-to-market strategy, which is what you said to me. And this analogy of being their best friends is, I think, shows in the passion with which you have gone into those pivotal moments and redefined either the company was in product-led growth or otherwise, with mergers and acquisitions, bringing and integrating those teams is such a huge thing. And I think let's kick things off with the big picture today. So what do you believe why do you believe that collaboration between sales and marketing and customer CS teams is so critical to the success of the overall GTM?
I've always found it really critical. And so as an operator within customer success, the reason I found it was so critical is because it's all connected. And so, for instance, the deals that are closed by the sales team, the types of customers that come in, the expectations that were set, all of that I need to deliver on. My team needs to deliver on the customer success side of the house. So that's why I always thought the sales partnership was so critical between me and the VP of sales or head of sales. Marketing, that partnership is also critical because that's where we're defining the ICP. So the ideal customer profile that we're going after, how we're marketing, how we're branding, it's the image that we're putting out about the company to the market. And so when a customer comes in, they already have preconceived notions about the company and our brand, the service that we're going to deliver. So really nailing that ICP and how we're going to market is so critical. So I've always found this really important. In fact, when I've gone into roles, I will approach in the first day, I will have a meeting with the VP of sales, VP of marketing, and I'll literally say, we are going to be best friends. We're going to be successful or fail together, and we have to be in lockstep. And what I find really interesting, so I've always had that approach, but I believe it even more so now that I've taken the revenue architecture course with Pavilion and Winning by Design. In that course, it talks a lot about the go-to-market function and breaking down silos. And you really have to be in lockstep to be successful. It's a given. It's a game changer. It's a must-have. So I would say I was a big fan of collaboration before. I'm an even bigger fan and proponent of collaboration now since taking that course.
You know what? It's so funny because I'm a fangirl of Songram's and Brian Brown's, the GTM Partners operating system. And so funny, we just yesterday only announced our partnership with GTM Partners. And I think Jacko and Sangram have kind of created this blueprint as well, which they talked about at the Pavilion conference. But I think everything is talking about non-siloed departments. Alignment is such a key, right? And when I took the GTM Partner certification, that was the theme. There's alignment which can be very tricky if you think about it. Especially during the hyper growth and transitions, the transformation has to happen. And how do you ensure that these teams stay on the same page? And we all talk about that first team approach. I think that's where the executive team, the C-suite, has to align. And that's where the best friends analogy that you're giving is so relevant. So talk to me a little bit about how do you kind of ensure that strong collaboration between these functions that can lead to a major, I'd say, business outcome, transformation, or growth?
Maybe I'll answer it two ways. One is the first thing I do is I make sure that I have a standing one-on-one with both sales and marketing every week. It's just so important that we are in lockstep, and I really invest in what they're doing. And I want them to be equally invested in what I'm doing and giving feedback. So that's table stakes. I do that at every organization that I join and make sure that we have a standing one-on-one. And I'm very transparent about, hey, we need to be in lockstep. We're going to be best friends. I want to meet with you every week. And I also really invest in their teams. So in the sales team, I spend time with the sales team. I want to be in their team meetings. I want to know what their challenges are. I want to know them like my own team. And same with the marketing team. So that's number one. And then number two is when we are working on really big projects. So for instance, in my last role, we were actually going to market with a brand new category and a brand new product and platform. that required extensive collaboration across the go-to-market team. Everything from what is going to be our pricing, what's our messaging, what is our branding around this, what's our ICP, to how are we selling it, what questions are we asking, what expectations are we setting, how long do we expect the sales cycle to be, how will that impact our conversion rates, to how then are we going to deliver on everything that we've promised on the customer success side. What's the onboarding going to look like? How are we going to ensure that they get the impact of that new product? So it was all in effort, and we met weekly with the go-to-market leaders, plus product, plus the CEO, plus Rev Ops, to talk through that. And very honestly, like when you're going to market with something brand new, it is not the time to just nod your head and smile. It's the time to really speak up and say, I think this is maybe problematic, or this is going to result in this sort of consequence. Are we okay with that? It's a time that I push myself as a leader to speak up in those meetings, and to be bold, because ultimately it's my team that needs to deliver on that experience for our customers.
Yeah, so feedback looping is very good. Looks like that you kind of nailed in, and this doesn't come right out of the gate. So for new folks, I would say new leaders who are getting into this same position as yours as VP of CS, you got to kind of go back and look at, how do you kind of understand each stage of the buyer journey and each function delivering on that promise that marketing made probably, or the sales made. It's so funny that you say that, because this is part of our go-to-market framework. We got to bring, during our workshop, and we kind of do as an agency, we bring in all the different functions together on the table. We talk about problems. We're honest and authentic, as you mentioned, because what we find is when some clients come to us, they have this aha moment. It's like, oh, wow, our previous marketing agency never talked to us about like this. They were only working with our director of marketing. They were never bringing in all these different teams. And I'm like, well, growth doesn't happen in a silo, right? You have to bring in and understand who your buyers are, what are your current state. And as we bring all these teams together, what we uncover is that everyone's speaking different language. They're not aligned. And alignment and collaboration doesn't always come in easy, because you're speaking some hard facts and hard truths, and that feedback sometimes can take you in a different direction, because you got to be honest that this is one team. We're always working towards the brand and the customer. So all that conversation with authenticity, honesty, and transparency has to happen in order for us to achieve that. Now, when you're trying to build all of that, right, you're trying to bring that collaboration, which I said doesn't come in easy. What challenge, is there any, evidence that there's still some challenges that you faced in fostering that collaboration across GTM teams? And what kind of mechanism or tools or practices that you talked about? I mean, you're talking to the C-suite, that's great. How do you align the, teams under you in order for all of that collaboration to really happen in a meaningful way?
One, what challenges have I sort of seen or faced? It is extremely challenging. And on a simple level, you might think, well, it's not going to be that hard. Like, you've got maybe 3 leaders that you need to get together to really talk about the business. But it is challenging because, to your point, you're often kind of stuck in your own world, and you've got your own set of metrics, things that you're looking at. And this is where I think a RevOps function really comes in. You need an umbrella over it to be looking at the entire go-to-market journey, the different metrics, and now how they're feeding into one another. And I think I didn't fully appreciate that until I took that revenue architecture course, where I really realized that you need that umbrella. You need to be talking the same language. You need to know how the funnel works all the way through, start to finish, and have alignment on the metrics and what they mean. So I'd say, while it sounds simple, sure, you're going to collaborate, as a group, it's actually quite difficult. And I do find it's essential for the leaders to understand each other's functions. Like, I've learned a ton about sales. I come from a sales and a marketing background, I have learned a lot about sales. In fact, I'm in CRO school right now with Pavilion to really button up my sales sort of knowledge in terms of how a leader looks at that function. And I intend to take CMO school as well for exactly the same reason. It's just really important that you understand each other's function and how it comes together. But RevOps can be sort of that glue or overarching umbrella if you have the right seniority in that role. So it's got to be someone who feels empowered to look at the entire journey and isn't sort of just taking orders from the leaders, if you will. So that was a long answer to your first question. The second question is like, how do you ensure alignment sort of both up and down? Up to the executive level and then down to the individual contributor levels. This is also really hard. So alignment up really starts at the CEO. They can also be that glue that sort of keeps the entire go-to-market function together. They really set the stage for the collaboration as well, and how those functions, sales, marketing, and CS work together. So the CEO plays a pivotal role there. And how we communicate up as go-to-market leaders is also pivotal, especially if we don't agree with something. It's really important that we align sort of together as a go-to-market function to take that to the executive team and ultimately to the board. And then communicating down, it can also be really challenging, but first it's really for those individual contributors to see that the go-to-market team is aligned is the first step. If they see that the leaders are aligned, they're much more likely to come along on the journey. If they see the leaders are not aligned, things can fall apart pretty quickly. So that alignment really is critical, both up and down.
And I find that, in case you don't have a RevOps function, because if you don't, it's such a new function, not every organization has that. More and more are building that. I think CEO needs to lead with that then. In that case, I think CEO is the one who's leading the entire collaboration alignment, and they should be responsible for that one pager. As Sangram and Brian talked in their course was about GTM dashboard. So you need to build a GTM, one-page GTM dashboard that everybody looks at weekly, is aligned. And I think Casey Young, at Pavilion's Women's Summit, she was talking about one team approach, the A-team approach. And then I think that's where that alignment happens. But what I really want to dig deep into is in your role, you're responsible, I believe, would be for, of course, churn and account expansion, your teams, right? Understanding of that entire buyer cycle and their needs, and having those really relevant notes in the CRM and making sure all the CRO knows how to train their teams. Do you think there's certain tools or best practices for training those individual contributors and bringing them together on be it like a monthly summit, retreat, workshops? Are there any practical strategies that our listeners could take away of something that they can implement right away and see that collaboration happening more so? Let's say that you found most effective in kind of facilitating that collaboration. Are there, like you talked about, having those meetings, those one-on-ones, but that's at the executive level. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about a little bit under you guys as your teams, because you could be aligned, but and you have to lead with your, that alignment. But how do you bring all that channel together, like those individual contributors, the CS account manager, the sales rep, and the marketing specialist together on that as well?
From a systems perspective, this is where your CRM plays a very pivotal role. So I'm a big proponent of Salesforce and introducing that very early into early stage organizations. Just that it is that glue between all the go-to-market functions and the customer journey. So it's everything from leads and how they're flowing through, and the conversion rates, converting to opportunities, the notes that are put on accounts, those discovery questions that are asked, and the answers that the customers give, just capturing all of that in the CRM so that when they do get to an onboarding manager and a customer success manager, they have a good understanding of the journey that customer has gone through, but most importantly, why they bought And how are we going to deliver impact? That is like the number one question they need to be able to answer using the information in the CRM. And then from there, it's this customer success manager also capturing what they're learning about the account, any challenges. It's the support tickets flowing through into Salesforce. You really do need that underlying glue for the individual contributors so that they can see the flow of customers through. And they can see all the relevant information at any given time.
I think then when they're bought in, this is such a great way to kind of, integrate them into that vision of what you guys are trying to achieve, right? So, so has there any time been you did everything right, you all did everything right, let's say, in an organization, you have had any experience when there was any misalignment in priorities, let's say, and if there were any, how do you suggest folks tackle it or, get everybody back on track?
Nothing goes perfectly, right? In every organization I've been in, we've had at some point or another, we've had a misalignment in priorities or a breakdown in communication. It's just a given, right? You're working with people, it happens. And let's face it, we like to work in our little silos. We like to be in our bubbles. That's actually more comfortable for us than collaborating. And so, yes, I can think of many examples where we've had misalignment. I think in my experience, the sooner you can spot it and speak up, the better. So, for instance, in my last organization, we had some misalignment on pricing. And our go-to-market strategy and how we were going to go to market. And in fact, we had a lot of meetings about pricing. And the sooner you can speak up and address it, the better. What you don't want to have happen is, one go-to-market leader speaks to another go-to-market leader who maybe speaks to another one. And now you get this kind of like undercurrent of, I'm not sure I'm aligned with this strategy, or I'm not sure this is the best approach, but nobody is like formally speaking up to get everyone back on track. And so you just have to be bold and say, look, we're not in agreement, or look, we're not aligned, or, a couple of us have had some side conversations and we think this is a better approach. Like, you just have to be open and honest and courageous enough to bring it up really quickly and then pivot and get back on track. Listen, sometimes the go-to-market leaders, they don't agree. And that's good. It's good that we have, some arguments and debates, because it means that we're invested in what's the best thing for the business and for the customer. And that's where the CEO can play a pivotal role, or a CCO or CRO, whatever, right, can come in and realign the teams.
I love the answer. And I think you really hit it several times. Be bold, be courageous, be open, and put it out before it's too late, or before you feel, I'd say, disjointed and disengaged. Because I think the speed of the leader is the speed of the team. The passion of the leader is the passion of the team. If you as a leader are unorganized, not passionate about the vision or what is being asked of you, I think your teams are not going to be engaged. And that's such a big blow to the business and the overall growth, and everything becomes not fruitful, I would say. It reminds me of an instance, we had a client who, enterprise level client, and they're large US, North America based, and they have a retail e-commerce, but they're more B2B as well. And what they did was, every time there was a new product that was a big initiative that was going to be launched, they obviously brought everybody together, but they also did frequent surveys, top and down, both, to make sure that all the teams, the entire go-to-market team, from an individual contributor to the ones setting the strategy and delivering on that strategic vision, everyone's aligned. And then they would, have those metrics in the form of surveys to say, how well are we doing internally to service the customer and bring it to the forefront, and then kind of go back and then do any trainings, workshops, or repositioning or whatnot that's needed. And that also is an opportunity for those, individual contributors, because sometimes, and I'm sure you had that experience, if you don't take that feedback loop from those who are frontline with the customer, you miss out on producing a great product, right? And or probably
Yes.
evolving a great product. Any instances where you had to deal with something like this or anything different that you guys have done? Talk to a little bit about it. Give a piece of advice you'd give in such cases.
I love the idea of the feedback loop with the frontline teams. It's so important. As go-to-market leaders, we aim or strive to be as in tune with the customer as possible. But the reality is we are not the expert. The individual contributors are the experts. The account executives, the account managers, the customer success managers, the onboarding managers, they're the ones that truly know if a strategy is going to succeed or fail. And they are getting real-time customer feedback. So one, it's really important as leaders that we listen to that. And then two, to bubble it up to the go-to-market leadership team. I definitely have had instances of this where our messaging wasn't landing the way that we thought it was going to land with our customers. We thought they were going to be over the moon with what we were launching and our new products, and they were sort of mediocre. And so that was really important feedback to bubble up. And so again, just the team will take the cues from you as the leader. The faster you can take their feedback and bubble it up in a meaningful way. And when we bubble it up, it's not enough just to say, well, this isn't landing with the market, right? You really have to have some data behind it, whether it's conversion rates or retention rates or whatever it is. If you can back it up with some data, and if you can aggregate it at a high level. So, 50% of our customers are saying this, or like even 25% of our customers are saying this, right? And then pivot is just so key. So it's, as a leader, it's getting the feedback, but knowing how to then look at it sort of top down at a very global level, look for patterns, trends, back it up with data, and then bring that to the go-to-market team so that you substantiated what you're seeing.
And then I think you hit it, that how do you kind of, bubble it up for meaningful actions? And I think then also taking that feedback back, working on your products or whatever the strategies could be, and communicating it back to the customer. Imagine how powerful it could be from engagement of the customer side to say, you know what, this company is listening to me. This company is making shifts as to what I need, right? I think the growth becomes so much easier, so much different in such situations. And I want to take a little bit of a turn here. As you know, the SaaS industry has gone through such major shifts. PE-backed portfolio companies, VC-backed firms, they're now not saying growth at all costs because they recognize that was not the way to go. Probably it was right for that time. And profitable, efficient growth is the key. Talk to me a little bit about your ideas and your thoughts on where the pressure is mounting on CS teams for retention. Churn's a big metric. And what is the role that CS teams can play today in today's environment around that?
This is probably the hardest question you've asked me so far, Arti, because it is hard. Like, let's face it, It's hard out there. Gone are the days of limitless budgets, people resources, teams, you name it, big company parties, taking customers to fancy offsites. Like, those days are gone. And so with this increased focus on profitability, sustainable growth, it's put a lot of pressure on leaders, and it's put a lot of pressure on teams to help companies be profitable. And the churn numbers are a huge part of the revenue of the company and how profitable the company is, whether they achieve their rule of 40, whether their valuation, like everything is so tied in there. I think the hardest thing as a CS leader is there's no quick fixes to churn. I'm always very hesitant when I'm either interviewing for roles or in roles, and the CEO or the board thinks like, okay, if we could just do these 3 things, our churn problem would be fixed, or we're going to hire you and you're going to fix it. Like those 2 things give me a lot of heartburn because moving the needle on churn is not easy. And that really, if I were to tie it back to our earlier conversation, this is where collaboration across the entire go-to-market function is so pivotal, because churn can be the result of everything from misaligned expectations of what the customer thought they were getting versus what is actually being delivered. We could be selling to the wrong customers in the first place. It could be a product sort of problem where the product is very transactional and it's not mission critical to the organization. There's just so many reasons for churn, and all of them require a look at the entire go-to-market approach. And so, yeah, there's no quick fixes to churn. And if I'm speaking to other go-to-market leaders, and particularly those in CS, I would say just hang in there, right? Like it's tough out there as a leader. There's a lot of pressure. I think things will get better in tech and in SaaS. And I think, courses like the ones that Pavilion are offering are really helpful, because finally, as a leader, there's some theory behind everything we're doing. I think for a long time, there was a lot of experimentation, and you could experiment as a leader because it was growth at all costs, because there were big budgets, because, it was kind of, sure, go ahead and do that. Whereas now you really need to have a more methodical approach and a strategic approach to the go-to-market motion. And so the courses like the ones Pavilion are offering have certainly helped me as a leader, give me a foundation for how I'm approaching things from more of a holistic and also a data perspective.
I think there's so much value in getting certified. Most of the times you feel that CEOs or the C-suite doesn't get certified, but I think you rightly said, bringing alignment to what the theory is telling, what the experiments are telling, and bringing that kind of holistically and package it into a model or a framework is so important, because it just gives you that one page, or like the GTM operating system we were talking about. That is a great way to start. And I'm sure the revenue architecture course has given you the same kind of, I'd say thinking, and brought everything home for you. And I want to really mention for our listeners that GTM Partners has a lot of ROI case studies, right? And those ROI studies, the data, the research that they've put in, and the time and effort they've put into these ROI studies is tremendous. And it's really, for the executives who are listening in, it's a great way to kind of, hone in and lean into these studies to kind of create your own strategies and get that head start. After all, the time to value is limited, right? We've got 90 days now to prove ROI, or even less. And this is going to continue to be the game plan in this economic environment. So important for us to lean into the data, the research that's available in the courses and the programs, and seek that help and kind of create our foundations and the strategy to build upon it with these certifications. So talking of technology and SaaS space, how could we not talk about artificial intelligence? There's a lot of talk around AI being integrated in every function, every role, every software that's coming up. Talk to me a little bit about where you see the vision for CS teams and AI, that integration.
I have to say, I'm a huge fan of AI. I just see it as such a game changer in terms of finding efficiency, just the operations across the board. There's so much opportunity for AI. I know there's a lot of debate about whether AI will replace people. I don't think so, right? I think it's replacing the mundane, repetitive tasks that we are doing. But I just love the idea of the future of AI, and the opportunities I think are really endless in terms of how it can help. When I think of customer success in particular, I love brainstorming on this topic, because there's the obvious ways I think that AI can help, which is like, taking call summaries and turning those into notes, or pulling out the key points, or with customer research, or I think there's just, those are the very obvious ones. I think there's the not obvious ones that I think are really exciting, like the ability for AI to pull out insights about a customer, how they're using the product, where are we sort of failing in the product, where are we losing people, what's the overall health of the account, what makes people buy, and what makes them expand. I think there's a lot of opportunity for AI there. And then I also think there's so much opportunity in onboarding in particular, like the generation of content, be it videos or articles or even just, intelligence on where a customer is at in their journey, predictions of churn. I could go on, Arti, That's so exciting. And there's just so many places to leverage AI. I will say, as a side note, in my experience, a lot of CSMs are using AI. In fact, a lot of people across go-to-market are using AI, and some aren't. And I would say if you're not, you should be. But also for companies are going to need policies around AI. I think very few companies have a policy in place regarding the use of AI, and they needed to have a policy in place yesterday. The teams are already using it. And so I will say, if you are a CEO listening, a COO, you're, on the IT side of the business, you need to have an AI policy, because there needs to be some checks and balances around company information that is being put into these AI systems, right? Not everything should go into AI. And yet I can tell you right now, a lot of it is. So I think that's the next step, is getting some good policies around it.
Wow, this is a golden nugget for those of us, who are listening. Besides all the practical advice that Andrea has shared today, I have a lot of questions, but we'll be here forever. I think we need a part 2 at some point. Before we wrap up, where can our listeners find you or connect with you and learn more about the work you do? And even those prospective companies who are looking for great leaders, where can they find you?
The easiest place to find me is on LinkedIn. I'm really easy to find because there's just not a lot of people with my name. So if you search for Andrea Bumstead, you will most definitely find me. Feel free to connect. Love to hear from you. I actually have a couple of initiatives, if I can plug for myself for 1 second, but there's 2 things I'm offering right now to my network as I look for my next opportunity. And one is Ask Andrea Anything Wednesday. So you can literally book a time on my calendar. You can ask me any question, whether it's a strategy question, if you're a go-to-market leader, if you're a new SaaS company and seed round and you want some feedback on your product, if you're up and coming in your career or transitioning in your career, you can ask me anything. Book time on my calendar on a Wednesday. And then the other thing I'm offering right now in my spare time is some training for CS teams. There's definitely some gaps. For instance, CS teams are not trained on commercial negotiations, and yet it's often a big part of their roles. And so I'm offering a training on commercial negotiations. I just developed another training on how to have impactful conversations with customers. So definitely check me out on LinkedIn, but there's lots of ways to connect with me if you're interested.
Fantastic. And Andrea also has other guest speakings that she's done on various podcasts. So I definitely think that is a great asset to learn from too. So just a plug for you. I'll listen to those past podcasts. So many nuggets that you've shared.
Thank you so much for having me, Arti. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for all the insights. And before we wrap this up, to our listeners, thank you for joining us today. And if you're listening after the show, then don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. Until next time, keep fueling your marketing and keep driving faster, quicker value to your teams and to your customers. Until then, have a great time.
Thank you for listening to the Fuel Your Marketing podcast. For more episodes, visit www.fuelyourmarketing.ca.